Hi there and welcome once again to the Explaining History YouTube channel. Now if you've gotten to this video it means you're looking for something for your work, for your study on Vietnam and the Second World War, the origins of the Vietnam War that ran between 1945 and 1975. The roots of the Vietnamese War are complicated and they are deep within Vietnam's history of being a colonial territory occupied by France. By the time we get to the 1950s, you got two factors intersecting, two factors kind of crossing over, and that is a anti-colonial struggle merging with the wider conflict of the Cold War, which is what makes Vietnam so complicated. So if we go all the way back, we can start to understand this bit by bit and look at it in phases. So the first phase, we need to go all the way back to 1887, when France formally declared Vietnam a colony of the French Empire. France ruled Vietnam quite brutally. There were uprisings in the 1930s that were suppressed, nationalist uprisings, and Vietnam from 1918 onwards, from the end of the First World War onwards, developed a powerful nationalist movement. Ho Chi Minh, for example, actually first discovered communist ideas while he was in France. He was in France in the early 1920s and helped develop the French Communist Party, but realised while he was in France that even French communists and socialists would never treat the Vietnamese comrades equally or view the anti-colonial struggles as particularly legitimate. Even within French communism there was a kind of a deep strain of this very chauvinistic French francophone nationalism. Anyway, don't worry about that too much. 1940 is our next sort of watershed moment. In 1940, obviously, Hitler sweeps across France in 6 weeks and stuns the world and plunges France and its empire into an immense crisis. The Japanese take advantage of this. Japan hasn't launched its Asian War yet. That comes the following year, and in the end of the following year. But Japan gains far greater access to French Indochina. The Democratic Republic of France falls, and France's colonies around the world are rapidly co-opted into the new collaborationist fascist regime that is established following Hitler's invasion. So French Indochina becomes Vichy French Indochina, fascist and cooperative with Japan. In 1941, Japan then seizes all of Indochina, and it's the decision to seize all of Indochina, all of Vietnam, that prompts Franklin Roosevelt to place an oil embargo on Japan, thus creating the countdown to Pearl Harbor. Without oil or scrap metal, Japan's armies would probably cease to function in China. One of the reasons why the Japanese wanted Vietnam is that they believed it would be to secure the southern flank of their invasion of China. And it's in 1941 that you also get the development of the Viet Minh. The Viet Minh established their hidden headquarters, as they were known, in northern Vietnam. And the Viet Minh offer what resistance there is in Vietnam to Japan. Now, following the invasion, following the attack on Pearl Harbor and the intervention of America into the war, America becomes the key player in the war in the Pacific and Southeast Asia. Britain has been pushed back all the way to the borders of India and has suffered a series of crises which they never really quite recover. And China is locked into not only a war against Japan but also a civil war. So Roosevelt has a key interest in what happens in Asia, and he is able to call many of the shots. And Roosevelt particularly dislikes Charles de Gaulle, the leader of the Free French and the future leader of France. And he's very suspicious of the French. He sees that de Gaulle might later become a dictator. And he is, in principle, interested in the possibility of an independent Vietnam. He was more inclined towards Churchill, so made less noises about an independent India or then to the British Empire, but certainly he thought that the French had no right to their colonial empire any longer. They had not really covered themselves in glory during the war. They had not particularly fought very well and couldn't be trusted. And there was, in his mind, a great deal of collaboration with the Nazis. How valid that is a different matter. So he made noises which were heard by the likes of Ho Chi Minh that there could and should be an independent Vietnam after the war. Ironically, the British don't like the sound of this because it would make it difficult for them to re-establish their Asian empire. Okay, so I'm going to continue this video shortly because it doesn't get too long, but do remember, add your comments, subscribe, and continue the conversation, and I'll catch you in the next video.